without park, without checker flag. That's a fine. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
All right, welcome back, everyone, for another episode of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers. Alongside me, as always, is co-host Steve Mez. If it's your first time listening, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself has been providing news, notes, and analysis to fans on social media since 2014. So go ahead and pull those belts tight and hang on as we throw the green flag on our recap of Ryan Blaney's run in the Toyota Save Mart 350 this past weekend at Sonoma Raceway. Steve, welcome back to another episode of the podcast. Fresh off the NASCAR Cup Series trip to wine country out there in California, where they turn left and right and left and right and left and right all weekend long across 2 series with the NASCAR Truck Series and the NASCAR Cup Series. Shout out to Josh Williams, Ryan Spotter, and Zane Smith, who came home in the 2nd position in the Truck Series race. Thought that they would be a threat after winning earlier this year at COTA. And shout out to Ryan and the Team Penske team for a solid performance. And what were your impressions on the weekend?
It was pretty good for what they had. That's another thing as we'll go along and we'll go through what the speeds were and so forth. And what we noticed, though, racing wise, is this became one of those races where once you got 5 to 10 laps into the run, it got spread out. And once it got spread out, everybody equalized out. And then it was like you were, if you were 2 seconds behind somebody, you weren't catching them unless they really bobbled. I mean, you were going to be a 10th, maybe 2/10 faster, but you can never get to a point where you can get in there and close on them. So you're going to do one of 2 things to pass them. And that's dive bomb into a turn underneath them, or hope they make the mistake, and then you catch them as they make the mistake. Now, don't get me wrong, that does happen here and there during the race, but for the most part, these guys are pretty good drivers, and they do a pretty good job of handling their equipment, for the most part.
Yeah, I thought there's a few examples of cars, and we talk about comers and goers, not as many as we've seen in a lot of the oval races recently this season, but you saw like guys like Chris Buescher who were fast on the short run, and then they would kind of fall off as it went. I don't know if it had to do with, how well they were, how they were abusing their tires or not early on in runs. You would see some guys get off track, go dirt tracking a little bit. You see some people spinning out.
Agricultural racing, as Mike Joy said. I love that.
Some people spinning out. I mean, so there was a little bit of that. But yeah, for the most part, stage breaks, restarts after cautions, things like that were most of the excitement happened. Mm-hmm. And you did get it for a good period of time. But I do think there's in some situations where I know NASCAR is looking at the short track package overall, things with like maybe removing the diffuser or other things like that. Maybe they need to look at that for road courses too. By no means was this a terrible, boring race or anything. It still had a great storyline in the end. But there's always room for improvement, I think.
The difference in the car was definitely there based on what the 5 car did. And I say that because last year, the 5 car on the pole, and everybody races the race. I always say backwards, but it's not backwards. It's based on when the cautions are coming, and they know they're going to get a caution for the stage break at the 2 different points. So if you noticed, once again this year, 2-3 laps before the first stage break, everybody comes in and pits, and the 5 doesn't. Last year, the car was so good, the 5 car was so good, didn't pit, won the stage, started in the back for the 2nd stage, worked his way all the way through the field, won the stage, didn't pit when everybody else pitted again, started mid-pack again in the 3rd stage, and then raced all the way to the front. Now, mind you, the 5 car was that good last year also.
Yeah.
But last year's car, you could do that. This year's car, at the 5 car stage 1, when he does the same thing, tries to go along with that strategy. And then once he got back in traffic for the start of stage 2, we didn't really see the 5 car again the rest of the day.
Yeah. Well, you do at one important point later on, but not for good reasons.
Not the way he did it last year. So this car, definitely had a difference in the way it raced with each other. And tire, people worried about tire fall off. There wasn't enough tire fall off to cause everybody to hurry up and need tires, or maybe everybody was so good at conserving their tires too, and that's part of it too. These guys, racing the track and so forth is become what you're supposed to do, and they do a pretty good job of that after a while. So.
All right. So everyone talks about it. They talked about it on the broadcast. Ryan Blaney is a really kind of underrated road course racer, even though he has that victory at the Roval, the inaugural race at the Roval in Charlotte there. But it was a very Ryan Blaney road course day, solid start to finish. And why don't we go ahead and talk about it?
Yeah, we'll get Saturday's practice FS2 first off.
You're not a big fan of that.
Well, it's so hard to find it, and then you got to get the app, and it's so much extra if you like DirecTV or something like that. So much extra to a year to get it for like these 4 or 5 occasions to do this. And if you have the app, they let you log in and get it. But once again, I'm on my phone. I'm trying to listen to the scanner.
Yeah,
I don't want to have to find another alternate thing to do this and that with. And sometimes I do, and I try to figure it out. And then the app kept crashing. And then the tracker that they had kept crashing. I mean, it was just a total, situation.
On the plus side, I'm pretty sure with the next TV package, streaming is going to be a huge component. Wait, did I say plus side for you? No, that's not the plus side.
Well, no, I'll just go buy more things that I can stream with, That's just like I say about the TVs, about putting the cameras in the cars. You give me a you put the camera in the car, and I can buy it every week, subscribe for the year, whatever. Guess what I'm probably going to do? You got my money, as long as it's not, exorbitant, So Ryan was in Group B, that they did 20 minutes per group there with the practice. And, it wasn't super awesome speeds, but early on, like the 5, of course, was fast in his group, and 18 to 9. After 3 laps, Ryan was like 18th and almost a whole second back. So, but once again, this is like a rhythm type track. You got to run 1 lap, 2 laps, 3 laps, 4 laps. And they were trying to figure out, since they, the only real practice was a simulator before this, the different changes and the car itself. It was going to take a little while, but by his 5th or 6th lap, he was up to 8th, and he gained a half a second a lap. So, pretty good because there were already 5 laps on the tires too at that point. So he was getting better at the laps. It was less than a 10th behind AJ Allmendinger's time at that point. I kind of always point to somebody who's, is going to run well on a road course. His lap times, they said that like with 8 or 10 laps in, his lap times were comparable to the 18 and the 45, which is pretty good, guys. Once again,
it wasn't like a huge disparity between lap times either. I think even like, first to 20th on the board were all pretty tight.
Yeah. So it's just a matter of when you do go get, your qualifying, that you run a good tight lap. And it's funny is people will look at the single lap runs during a practice, because that's what NASCAR post. But if you dig on their app, you can find the 5-lap average, you can find the 10-lap average. Well, Ryan's 10-lap average was actually 4th best, and the 18 car actually had 18 car was the one who had the best 10-lap average. So it wasn't too bad, when you look at it long run. And if you think, well, if we get into some long runs, that might work out for him. They do qualifying. Group A, the top 5 was the 11, the 8, 22, the 34, the 17. And then Group B, Ryan was in Group B, and the 5, the 9, the 41, the 1, and 99 ended up. And like you were saying, you were watching it, and it looked like on the tracker when he went out the second time in Group B, like he was going to make the top 5. What happened?
I'm not sure what they were doing. I think that with that tracker where they're showing, if you're in the green, that means you're going to advance. Usually at that point in the qualifying session, they're just looking at the 5th place car. I don't know what they had the tracker set to compare to, but Ryan was in the green the entire lap all the way until he hit that, which worth mentioning that the start finish line for qualifying was actually entering I don't remember
like,
where it was,
somewhere
entering
around
10 or
10.
something.
Yeah, because
Which in the truck race turned out to be really bad for Carson Hocevar, who kept it in the gas trying to put down a fast lap and spun himself out into a wall. But yeah, really weird spot. But anyway, Ryan crosses that line. He's in the green. I'm like, wow, all right, big improvement. And then he only moves up to ninth, I think, in the group. And I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then I noticed it was like that for pretty much everybody. And I'm like, oh, somebody at Fox just kind of messed up what the lap was comparing to and gave me a false sense of hope here. So
yeah, kind of.
but oh well.
Because you kind of thought that if he ran a decent lap, that making the top 5 is all you really need. Then who knows from there, But they end up 14th. The 5 does get the pole, and I think this is the 5th year in a row or something like that. The 5 cars gotten the pole at Sonoma. So pretty good deal for Larson there, but he ends up in pit stall number 10, which is behind the 31 car, and actually has an opening behind him, which is just past the start finish line. So this is also a really good deal for during the race, because anytime you don't have to deal with guys on both sides of you, and truthfully, the 31 car might have to come around him, but might not come. It all depends on when he comes around him, I guess. To the rear for the race, we got the 20, the 16, 43, the 51. We do have 2 spotters with Josh and then Mule, Dave Nichols. Mule's got, I believe it was down turn 11. There's like 1 or 2 blind spots. If you listen to them during the pre-race, they're telling Ryan where they pick him up, where they lose him. And they do, most of the track is Josh, so wherever he's positioned, he can see most of the track. All the way through the restart there. Dave does turn 11 and the restart going up the hill. So
I want to know if Dave was over hanging out in that new turn 11 club. They kept talking about it all weekend long. And I'm like, man, if you ever make it to Sonoma and you can figure out a way to watch the race from there, that's the spot I would be at.
These guys, these tracks, and I hear, cause I, listening to other podcasts, these tracks really screw the spotters. They create these awesome vantage points that they sell tickets to. And I understand that, okay, you're going to, $1,000 to sit here or whatever it is. And I kind of get that, but we got to do the same thing for the spotters. It's a safety thing. Sometimes there were a lot of complaints the week before at Gateway about where they had them positioned, and they put those stages up and they couldn't see because the stages were on the inside of the track. And there's always something, it seems like, and they're like the afterthought, and they really shouldn't be the afterthought. They should be the first thought. You're asking guys to drive 150 200 miles an hour at places, and they need that extra set of eyes, and then you're blocking their view because you want to make sure that somebody gets a nice hospitality seat somewhere. Okay, off my soapbox. On to the race.
Yeah, anyway, turn 11 club looked great.
So the stages were 25, 55, 110 there, 6 sets of tires. And they're figuring it was like 41 to 44 laps for fuel. So lap inside line, outside line. Okay, on these restarts. The only choice was for the leader. There was no choose cone. So the even number were on what would be the left-hand side coming up the track, the inside of the track, or the right-hand side of the track, and the odd number on the left-hand side. So the leader would always take the right-hand side. So the even number guys. So if you restarted with an even number, you got a better launch because you're behind the leader. And there were a couple times during this race where Ryan ends up on an odd number, and you basically end up losing a spot getting to turn 2 and 3 by the time you get to the top of the hill. So Ryan gets 2 spots before turn 4, up to 12th on the first lap. So he gets, once again, he's on the even side, gets the good launch. Lap 3, the 5 is leading. Ryan is 12th and already by 7 seconds back. It already spreads out pretty quick. The lap 6, I got the 22s kind of holding Ryan up. And once again, this is where it happens, where you can't pass anybody unless you just dive bomb them at certain points, unless you're that much better or they make a mistake. They're 13 seconds of the leader at this back of the leader at this point. Lap 10, Josh tells me you're doing really good here. The guys are coming back to you. So this is the other thing, if you do a good job with tire conservation and, you keep your stuff clean, there are guys that raced a lot harder. They might start losing a couple of tenths and you can get to them. Then we get the caution for the 23 car blowing up. Thankfully, it happened in an area where he got off the track pretty quick. He went up over the hill going towards like 3 and 4 there. He went to the left-hand side of the track and drove out there to an open area where, the fluid. So they didn't have a lot of cleanup or nothing. And
yeah, they had a good
really,
TV shot of the fluid coming out of that car, and it was just gushing from there. And man, I don't know what, I know people were really quick to say, oh, of course, Bubba must have just missed a shift and made a mistake or something. And as far as they know from the data and everything, that's not what happened. I just don't know what, the 23, some points in practice they had speed for this week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe they weren't going to have their best day, but I just don't know what that team kind of reminds me. We're going to be talking a lot about maybe Daniel Suarez toward the end of this, but what do they need to do to be able to put a whole race together to have some success? And I think they're going to break through eventually here, but man, it was just tough, seeing Bubba, that early on into a race and just basically having no shot, because once again, I think this is a second or third mechanical failure that's taken them out of a race.
Yeah. Jonathan goes with body armor as the call here, which ends up being staying out. Only 3 cars pit, the 18, the 16, the 24, and Ryan moves up to 11th. So the restarts at lap 13. And when it sorts out, he ends up losing a spot. He ends up in 12th. He's battling with the 14 in the S turns. It's a pretty good battle. They do a good job. TV shows a lot of Ryan during this race, even though he might be running a little bit further back early on. At lap 15, the 43 spins and there's no caution. This is what's really cool about road courses. If a guy spins out, he does it in the right place where nobody else collects him. They can keep it green, keep it moving. And he is faster right now by 0.2 than the 14. And they're about 10 seconds back of the leader once again, who's the 5. So at lap 17, Ryan passes the 14, gets to 11. At lap 19, he passes the 11, gets to 10th. At lap 20, he passes the 41, he gets to 9th. Now, like I said, some of these guys have come back to him a little bit, and he's doing pretty good on his tires. At lap 21, they pit. We're getting close to the end of the stage, and this is that strategy where they pit before the end of the stage. They were 9th when they pitted. This is they come out of the pits, and this is where it happens. I brought visuals. Okay, here's Ryan. He's going into turn 4, and this will be the 11 car, even though I don't have an 11 car. And he slides the tires, is what he does, coming into the turn, and bumps Ryan out of the way. And this, causes great coverage on TV.
It does, right? They really, they covered the radio from start to finish on this, and then followed back up again.
Because I've got it. I've got some things written here. It ends up Ryan loses a couple spots because of it. And at lap 20, at lap 22, he's back in 24th. Now, mind you, part of this is because some of the cars didn't pit and so forth too. The top 11 cars actually did not pit. Ryan during the stage break tells the 11 he's got one coming to him, but I guess the stage winner is the 5. Ryan finishes 24th. The leaders all pit. So Ryan gets all the way up to 12th here, and the 9 leads after the end of the stage break. The 11 apologizes. He just says, find Josh and tell Josh to let him know that the next time he's by me, I'll let him by. And Ryan's like, yeah, I'm sure he's very sorry. And you could hear the sarcasm on the radio dripping there. But what's interesting is later on, actually at lap 29 is the restart, the 9's leading, Ryan's up to 10th, and the 11 gave him space on this restart. So he actually gets by the 11. The 11 gave him position, which, so there was a little bit of respect there. It's just that in the moment, that once again, and these spotter things and TV does hurry up and put them on the air in the moment, frustration, mad, this happened, that happened. I'm sure that the day after or whenever competition meeting, looking at the video of it, you can see the 11 slot. Yeah. He slid in there too hard. Now, he made a mistake, He did. He shouldn't have driven it that way in there, but he did. He slid the tires. Unfortunately, the guy on the other end of it was the 12 car. So
yeah. And I was saying, like, dozens of cars probably did that all day long. I mean, Chastain does it a little bit later inside of the 9 car, and it's like, just like when we talk about pit crew mistakes, it's like they didn't want to do that. Like him diving in there and locking up his tires did not turn into a successful move for the 11. So
no, not really.
Yeah, so I mean, it's like they don't mean to, but yeah, I mean, when you're on the receiving end of it, you probably really don't care what the reason was. But it did great make for I would say the second great Blaney TV moment of the day, because the first came in the pre-race when you had wine pairings with Ryan that I still don't know has been posted as a video yet, and people have been asking for it. But two great alcohol pairings, two great Blaney TV moments. And the reason I like the second one is because I think I tweeted it out, like, we're here for any Josh Williams shout outs that that the broadcast does. That's heck yeah, well, it was one of our favorite things.
Yep. So lap 33, he's up to 10th, and they're about 6 seconds back of the 9 who's leading. Lap 34, Josh does tell him he's better than the next 4 or 5 in front of him. They'll keep coming back to you. And at lap 35, he's about 7.5 seconds back of the leader, the 9. So lap 37, he passes the 41, gets up to 9th. And at lap 40, he passes the 48, he's up to 8th. And he's only about 10 seconds back at the lead at this point. So he's not really getting too far back. And they're running similar lap times to the cars in front of them at this point. Lap 42, the 17 is putting the pressure on the 9 for the lead. And I think that kind of helps too. It brings people back to you a little bit when guys are racing with each other. And Ryan is about 3.5 seconds back of the 34 car at this point, who's 7th. But he's over a half second faster. So I was thinking he was going to start gaining on him at this point. At lap 47, the 1 car spins, gets back on track right in front of Ryan, which held Ryan up, and, it's not a good thing really, but
luckily he makes it through. It wasn't the best moment. And I think we talk about people making mistakes. I think at this point, Chastain made a mistake, got in too hot. He said he was, he spun trying to avoid hitting his teammate, the 99. So, but yeah, luckily the 12 doesn't get collected in this.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping Ryan would be able to pass him at that point, but he jumped up on the track in front of Ryan pretty quick there. So at lap 50, though, he does pass the 1, get up to 7th there. Lap 52, here we go again. Before a stage break, we start pitting from 7th. The 9 has his pitting issue here. He's got a penalty.
And I hate to, I mean, it's you laugh a little bit, but it's like, man, they just, he goes to leave the box, that rear tire changer is waving frantically, which we've seen that happened to the 12 car before. And so he backs up, but he just doesn't back up far enough. And I think that's part of that time where, as the crew chief and as the pit crew members, you just have to be aware, like, just because his tires were behind the line in the pit box, the front end was still sticking out over it, and you have to be within that box unless it's the left or the right rear, right? I think the left rear tire can stick out, but out toward pit road, but that's the only part of the car that's allowed to stick out of the box. And the front end of this car is sticking out still, and they jack it back up, get the tire back on, but NASCAR sees that real fast. And that's the first of 2 penalties that are issued during this round of pit stops, but only one of them stands. So,
well, yeah, the 8 is speeding too.
3 there.
Yeah, there's 3. But his doesn't have as much to do with the top 10 as the other ones. The 22 is leading at this point, and Ryan ends up, I think they had him as like 12th by lap 54. And then at 55, the 22 wins the stage. Now, Ryan was 11th at that point, and there were 2 penalties. You're right. They had a penalty for the 9 that was going to have to be assessed, and a penalty for the 17 that was going to have to be in there also. And the 17 does a
it's like they appealed. The penalty was they thought they threw the gas can. Because I think the official maybe saw the second half of what had happened. And I don't know if you know much about what it was, but essentially I think they had a gas can on the pit wall that actually fell off. So I think the official saw the gas man catch it after it fell, and they thought somebody had tossed it. from the other
Yeah.
side of the wall, but really the official only saw the second half of what
Second
had
part of
happened,
it.
which it was falling off. So
Yeah.
they pled their case, which you see teams do that all the time, pleading their case with the official, and 99% of the time that never works. But
No.
I think they're able to, they have like a system in each pit stall with cameras that they officiate with, and I think they were able to go back and see this. Unfortunate part, at one point Ryan was credited with ninth with the ninth place finish in the stage, and then he got bumped back one. So but the cool part is he does get a stage point, at least one.
they got at least a stage point out of it. So yeah, it would have been nice to get two of them, but not bad. And they restart lap 60 here, and some of the other cars end up pitting who didn't pit and so forth, and he's up to fifth with the 17 leading, and the 99 takes the lead in 4.
But it's worth mentioning, like, this is what the strategy they've had all race long is set them up for.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they don't get come home with a bunch of stage points in this race. They're trying to set up to have a shot to win the race. So they pit early, they get into this final stage, which you don't know how many pit stops they'll have during that, depending on cautions and things. So this has set them up to have track position to go into the final run.
Yeah. So the 99 does take the lead in turn 4. Ryan is 6th at this point. And I've got positions 2 through 7 are all Fords, which is pretty impressive. At lap 63, the 99 leads. Ryan is in 6th. He's about 3 seconds back. And at lap 64, the 8 and the 77 tangle up, but there's no caution. And then something actually ended up breaking on the 8, ending his day. At lap 66, Ryan's in 6th, and he's only like 7/10 back of the 6 car. And, his lap times are only about a 10th off the leader, the 99. So if that tells you anything, the guy that wins the race a little later on, Ryan's really not that far off him. It's all about clean air and getting out front. At the lap 70, I wrote down, it's pretty quiet on the radio. This is another thing that happens with the road courses. The racing with the rhythm of the track and trying to run a good lap and concentrating on every turn. As long as nobody is running up on you or you're trying to pass anybody, it does get quiet on the radio because there's no reason to talk to the driver. And somebody on the broadcast, I'm not sure which driver, they played an audio of the guy yelling about it, like, just shut up and let me drive or something like that. I don't know who it was, but that's the way it kind of gets. And it's actually sometimes less is more because they're concentrating on each turn and how they enter each turn, how they get out of each turn. And then, it also helps with feedback later on. At lap 75, we've got the 11 and the 8, excuse me, the 11 and the 18 pitting. And this is kind of an alternate strategy that does not end up working for the Gibbs cars. Ryan is in 6th at this point, about 3/10 back of the 6 car, and only about 6 seconds off the lead, which is the 99. At lap 76, the 9 pits. And at lap 80, Ryan does go ahead and pit here from 6th. He comes out 20th as we're doing green flag pitting in the next couple laps. Still in the lead lap. That's the one good thing about these pit cycles, you don't
and it's
lose
kind
a
of
lap.
weird, like with this last stage, is that you don't want to pit too early and you don't want to pit too late because if you pit too early and then everybody else has an opportunity to come in and they have fresher tires than you. If you pit too late, other people have already pitted, and then you end up, if there's a caution, to be clear, and then they end up cycling ahead of you, and then you have to start back behind them. So this is like a really tough call. I don't want to be Jonathan Hassler making this call. I don't want to be the 99 crew chief and 17 crew chiefs making this call either, because it really comes down to this, and sometimes it just comes down to luck. And so good luck with this guy. I'm glad I'm not the one making those decisions.
Yeah, and it actually works out really well in the long run. Lap 188 or lap 81, we have more green flag pitting. Ryan gets himself up to 18th at this point. The 4 has his issue pitting. The 1 has his issue pitting. Lap 82, Ryan's up to 11th. The 99 and the 34 pull into the pits. And then lap 82, we get the caution. The 5 car has a problem. His wheel goes a bouncing and a rolling. And now, Ryan's going to stay out, and everybody else who has to pit is going to pit and up behind him, and puts Ryan up in 3rd. as everyone else pits.
Yeah, this wheel stuff, I know it's weird because I mean, I think we're paying so much attention to it. Yeah, it's a safety issue. And we just never really see it that often. Obviously there's one familiar Blaney one that we've already discussed before that we've seen in the past, but I've heard a lot this week, mainly because it's a high profile driver. I think when it was, the BJ McLeods and Justin Haley's and some other folks that have lost tires, like no one really cared. When you have somebody at the level of Kyle Larson, who had a car that could have potentially won the race if things played out and his car was good enough to get back to the front, then people all of a sudden, NASCAR needs to change the rules. They need to figure out how to go back to the 5 lug nuts. Something's wrong here. And, people are doing the math and, they've done, I forget, I don't know how many, tens of thousands, 30,000 something pit stops so far this year across all the teams. And this was only the 10th tire to go loose. So it's like less than 1% of the pit stops have resulted in a tire going loose. And I mean, I'm sure they'll look at something in the past, in the future, but you just really have to think a lot of it's still down to speed. I mean, these crews are doing in some cases sub 9-second pit stops.
Yeah.
And they're under a lot of pressure to make that happen. And Hendrick has had some of the best pit crews, but that's the second Hendrick crew in this race. Luckily the 9 caught it before they left the stall.
Yeah.
But in this case, the 5 crew, who's been fast all year as well. I mean, it's just, I don't know, it's part of the game, but I can understand the safety aspect of, what happens if it bounces up into the crowd. That's a serious thing. So you can say even one of these happening is one too many, but 10 out of, dozens or, 20, 30,000 pit stops. I don't know. Somebody else can do the math for me. It's not really that much. And I think at some point they're going to figure this out and we'll move on. But I just hope, I don't want to see Hassler go on a vacation or Flores or any of these folks from Ryan's pit crew. So,
no.
Yeah,
that's the thing about it is that, it takes your best guy at it and takes him out for 4 weeks, and then the crew chief, they can work around that in some extent, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the reality is it's happening to everybody at one way, shape, or form. Every team seems to have had some sort of issue at some point. So don't tell me, oh, fire those guys.
Yeah.
Because you know what? Everybody's doing it. Everybody's having an issue. Everybody's trying to push the envelope. And, you can have a slow stop and lose spots that way, or you can push the envelope and hopefully you get it right each time,
Yeah.
So
And
it just, I just the negative, sometimes the negative people get to me a little bit. I don't know why, but
anyway, that we mentioned earlier that we would talk about the 5 again. And unfortunately it wasn't for anything good.
No, which I'm okay with,
In the grand scheme for,
in the
for
grand
us.
scheme.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, for us, it's good. Yeah. We get the restart at lap 87 here with Ryan in third, and it's the 99 and 17 on the front row. Same thing here. 99 chooses what would be the right-hand lane, the inside part of the track, and that's where the even number cars are. And once again, this gets him out front, and Ryan's in third on that other end of things, having to wait behind the 17 for a second or so. And Ryan ends up shuffling back to fourth. The 18 spins during this, and by himself, nobody helped him, which was, crazy, because there were a bunch of guys going into that turn, and it really luckily didn't collect a lot of people. Lap 89, Ryan is 2 seconds off the leader with the 99 at this point. By lap 92, he's about a half second back at the 34 car, about 4 seconds back of the 99, still in fourth. At lap 94, they were, he just stuck, basically stuck. You couldn't really get to. And once again, like I said earlier, the things have kind of equaled out because Josh makes the comment back. He says, copy that 16 more times. They just got to keep trying, Lap 96, the 4 passes, Ryan's back to fifth. And at lap 100, the 2 ends up passing and Ryan's back to sixth. And
I think one thing worth mentioning in this, we talked about the racing not being great. As far as like a long run has gone, this was probably the best racing we saw all race between the leaders.
Yeah.
Because the 17 was right on the 99 for like a dozen laps here.
Yeah. He
through this run
for a little while. He was able to hang on. Yeah.
And I just wanted to bring up something I've already talked to you about, but just been trying to figure out what I mean, me and probably the whole industry, like what has Trackhouse figured out this year that has made them so good? And it's like something I really saw in this race, and I saw in the races that, you know, Ross Chastain has run really well in at Coda where he won. It just seems like their drive off, and I'm not a mechanical person or I don't really know anything, but this is just my observation. It just seems like the drive off that the one in the 99 have at every track, specifically at road courses, is just so much better than everybody else. And like, to me, it's like, I think that's, they've discovered something in making the mechanical grip better than everybody else has, that just gives them, because the 17 would be able to dive into a corner and get right to the 99's bumper like 10 times during this run, and then the 99 would just take off out of the turn. He would go a little bit slower to the turn, take off, and be gone, and it stretched the lead back out to more than a second every single time until they got to turn 11, basically. And it's just like, you know what? I've just noticed that the one has been able to do that all year long at pretty much every track. And you saw it from the 99 too, when, you know, they've led a lot of laps this year and had speed too. So it's just, I think I said to you, it's like Trackhouse, I mean, hopefully they enjoy this, because, you know, the sport's cyclical, and like other teams will catch up at some point. Other teams are going to figure it out. Hopefully it's Team Penske, figure out what they're doing right. But I think that's what's given them, and specifically in this race at the road courses. So you got to watch those two cars at the next couple of road courses before the playoffs start. But yeah, the drive off was impressive. I'm hoping Team Penske figures out what it is, but the racing, like I was saying, this was the best racing of the day outside of restarts, was just kind of watching this race for the lead. It eventually strings out in the end, but it was exciting for a little bit, seeing, you know, somebody like Chris Buescher, who hasn't won since that fog race at Pocono. And then a couple other guys that up there that really needed to win. Michael McDowell, who obviously won the Daytona 500 last year, having a really good race himself. So three great storylines up front if whoever wins the race, but it was some pretty decent racing, at least for the finish going to the end, until we get till about 8 or 9 laps to go.
Yeah, we get lap 101, he's about 13 seconds back of the lead in the 99 there, and lap 105, he's 14 back of that leader. But interesting top 10 at that point. You know, we got the 99, the 17, the 34, the 4, you know, the 2, the 12, and the 9 has worked his way back up. The 1 has worked his way back in there. The 24, and then the 6 is actually running really well. Lap 108 is when the 16 does some agricultural racing too. And Josh pretty much on the radio is like, there's going to be a caution. There's going to be a caution. Yeah. And NASCAR held off, gave him a second or two, and AJ was able to gather it up, start it up, and move it. And like you said earlier, I think a couple more seconds and they probably do throw a caution, or, you know, if he puts the window net down or something. I mean, he wasn't in an area where a lot of cars are going to end up. Yeah. Unless somebody else makes that same mistake he made. So the fact that he just got it moving again is all they really need to see. And it was a good thing, because really another restart, all it would have done is somebody would have crashed somebody.
Yeah, it would have just been a wreck up front. Maybe Ryan gets caught up in it. Maybe Ryan gains a couple positions. But I'm glad, you know, we talk about on this podcast all the time, we just want to see the races play out. We'd like to see green flag runs. Ryan was having a solid day. Yeah, he maybe could have gained a couple spots, but there's a lot of risk going into especially like a green-white checker at a road course that's as physical as Sonoma can be. So, and worth noting that the 16, man, I mean, Ryan had this happen in a race before. I think it might even have been Sonoma a few years ago. I think he finished 18th. Suarez, I think at Coda, ran half the race with this problem. No power steering on the 16. And it happened to the 16, like within the first few laps of the race.
Yeah.
So he ran that whole race, and he was also worth mentioning. He was running in the top 10, I believe, when this accident happened to him. So, man, and that just shows you the talent that Allmendinger has on road courses, which we all know. But felt bad for him. Really glad he got that car refired just so we could finish this race out.
Yeah. So we get to the finish, and the 99
checker flag
grabs the checker flag. The Ryan does finish 6th. And there was much joy in the Adam Rogers household.
It was,
overjoy.
If you follow my social media, Twitter, Facebook, whatever, we get to a lot of, I mean, at least the last few years, it hasn't always been this way. Before, we used to just go to pretty much Daytona, but we've been traveling a lot to races in the last about 2.5 years. And my wife is a diehard Daniel Suarez fan. I said as much as I tried to convince her to be a full-time Blaney fan, which she's I consider her kind of a part-time Blaney fan. She cheers for him when he's having a good day. But she's full-time diehard Suarez fan. And it's been a long time for her to finally see him go to victory lane. So there was definitely a fiesta in the household, and may have taken her out to celebrate with some margaritas for that victory. But yeah, I mean, she's a huge fan, been lucky enough. He's really accessible at the racetrack. She's been able to meet him, probably a dozen times. And yeah, I was really, really happy for her because she's got to see me and, even in person at Daytona when Ryan won, celebrate the victories that the 12 cars had. So it was really cool to finally see Suarez in the 99 go to victory lane, and shared a post on the Team Blaney Facebook page and Twitter page as well. Ryan, Ryan and Daniel are amigos.
Mm-hmm.
I think they've done some broadcast work together for some Xfinity races and such. And I think outside of the car too, they're pretty decent friends. And Ryan was one of the drivers that they have a video of the cool down lap of everybody kind of congratulating the 99 as they went by. And Ryan went to victory lane, and Ryan and Daniel both shared a photo that I shared as well of Ryan congratulating him in victory lane that I thought was kind of cool, and got a lot of traction this weekend. So
very, very popular win in the garage, and just knowing your wife and knowing her interactions with him, it was really, really cool because he seems like that. He is that genuine nice guy. He literally recognizes your wife at the track, and just he just seems like that good of a person. And it's a really feel good thing. He got pushed out of 2 different situations where if he gets another year or 2 at those places, he probably would have shown what he could do, because he showed what he could do in the Xfinity series. He won a championship, so it's not like he's not a bad driver or anything by any means. He just had situations, they wanted to keep Martin Truex over there, and he got pushed out because of that. He gets pushed out at Haas based on some sponsorship type things that had nothing to do with his driving ability. And it's really, really, really nice to see what he could do when he had the equipment, and hopefully it continues for him.
Yeah, and a really cool story. I mean, he does bring some sponsorship with some connections that he has. I think it's Carlos Slim in Mexico with Comscope and some other things. But you talk about a guy that's kind of earned his way. And again, this isn't the Daniel's Amigos podcast or anything, but just worth mentioning. I think he ran in the NASCAR. There's like a Mexico series for a little while. Then he moves to up like New York, going from Mexico to New York, going through 4 seasons for the first time in his life, just to try to break into motorsports in the US, get some ARCA rides. It's a standout there. Eventually, works his way up to, he ran a year or 2 with Kyle Busch Motorsports and gets victory in the Truck Series, moves on to the Xfinity Series for a couple of years, gets a championship, and then Carl Edwards out of the blue retires, and they just shove him into Joe Gibbs Racing. And at the elite level in the Cup Series. And I think, he had a couple of decent runs. I think he may have actually even finished second to Ryan in Ryan's first victory at Pocono. I think Daniel finished second in that race, and he came so close multiple times in his career. But it's always good to see somebody like that I think, has earned it, has worked really hard. Almost kind of reminds me a little bit, definitely not the same type of career, but Kurt Busch, he had like a down year, had to go run for a lower team. Suarez went and ran for Gaunt Brothers for a year before he finally got this commitment from Justin Marks and Trackhouse Racing. And it's good to see the success. Obviously, would have liked to see Ryan Blaney go to victory lane at Sonoma, but we talked about it. Like I said at the start of this is a very Ryan Blaney road course race. He was in contention all race long. If there was a couple more restarts at the end, who knows, it could have been a Roval type situation where he able to kind of steal a victory, but ran in the top 10 pretty much all day. The point situation is a little bit different because of the strategy. Didn't get a lot of stage points, but did pick up at least the one really, really solid finish. And speaking of points, in the overall point standings, so this isn't the playoff standings, Ryan's in the fourth position behind Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, and Kyle Busch. But worth noting, just 25 points out of first place and just takes that one victory, and it'll put him in, really solid contention. He's won a lot of stages this year. He'll get the 5 points for victory whenever that happens. And, we got 10 races to go, 9 or 10 races to go.
Yeah.
And, they're going back to, there's lots of places. I mean, Ryan's a threat to win at every track now. It used to be where, it's here and there, he'd have a really good shot, maybe a top 10 every week. This 12 team with Jonathan Hassler leading the way and Josh up on the spotter stand and everybody else on the pit crew that's been kind of clicking on all cylinders. They are a threat to win every week. But not this week. Why is that?
This week they're going to take a vacation.
Vacation. It's the only one. Yeah. The only off week for the Cup Series. 38 races when you count the All-Star race and the Clash. Only off week of the entire season. And I hope everybody that I just mentioned on the team and Ryan himself, hopefully they get some rest and regroup and come back fresh before everybody heads to Nashville to go back to the Nashville Super Speedway for the second time with the Cup Series.
Yeah, Nashville was a weird one last year because it was their first time there in a long time, and there was an issue before the race even started, and it kind of like made the rest of the day really tough. So, this will be a nice to take another swing at it. I've already heard some people talking about having to do some shifting.
Yeah, man, I can't wait. I don't think they're going to be able to fix this problem in 2022, but I'm hoping by 2023 NASCAR works with the rear end and is able to adjust the gear ratios here, because man, outside of Pocono, it was unique at Pocono. I just hate hearing about these guys having to shift on oval tracks.
Yeah, well, it gets, it wasn't real bad though at Gateway because there were extra shifts. It was 2 shifts in one turn, 1 shift in the other turn. There was a little more chance for error. But yeah, what happened at Martinsville was just not good. But once again, Martinsville could have been the weather too, how cold it was. So yeah, let's see what happens in 2 weeks from now. A nice hot Saturday or Sunday out there. But let's see. Each week is different because each track is different. Hardly any tracks are exactly the same, so we'll just see what happens when we get there. See what kind of tires Goodyear brings. Let's see what kind of things the teams do to push the envelope. You give teams a week off and you say, yeah, we got the week off, but I guarantee you there's a lot of work going on at the shops right now, and they're trying to figure out some things, and maybe they're going to throw a change at something that they would have never done before. Some simulator work being next week, and they decide they want to do something totally different when they get to the track. So who knows? You don't know what you're going to see. Like you said about catching up, people are going to catch up to Trackhouse or, catch up to what Gibbs have been doing on pit stops. You'll see some of that stuff happen between now and a week from now. So,
yeah. And plus, I mean, just like every week this year, at least for the first half of this season, a lot of unknowns going into Nashville. It's a concrete track in the first place. They put some resin down last year. The racing there was actually pretty decent last season. So who knows? Next gen car, we're going to see how it reacts to this racetrack, how it reacts to the surface. Like you said, what kind of tire are they going to put resin down? And let's see what those guys can do. And let's see what Ryan can do with the full race there, because yeah, the start of that race was shaky, and then some other things happened. And I think a brake rotor blew, and that was the end of that day. So we didn't even get to see what the 12 car could do. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, we're going to enjoy an off weekend, I think, along with the series, unless something else pops up. So hopefully, like I said, everybody else enjoys the weekend off, and maybe watch the truck race.
There's 2 things this weekend. There is the truck race, and then the summer season session starts with the SRX racing.
That's true.
So if you're looking forward to 6 weeks from now when they're coming to Sharon Speedway, and Dave and Ryan running in that, you might want to start watching these things on Saturday nights. They're a lot of fun. They got some interesting characters, some older racers that you haven't seen in a while out there, some younger ones that are up and coming that they mesh with them pretty well. It's a TV show. They do a good job of making sure that, they just throw a caution once in a while just to gather them all back up. They've got a drone flying around, giving you some different camera angles that you never get to see. I have a blast watching. I like watching Michael Waltrip, even if Michael's not going to run at the front of the pack. They can put a microphone in his face during a break, and he's all like out of breath. It's just there's just so many different fun things. They put a posting on social media a couple weeks ago about like the roughest driver out there, and almost everybody said that Tracy,
Paul Tracy, yeah,
Paul Tracy. So so just things like that to look forward to seeing Elio out there at different points, different times coming in. All these different guys coming in from different directions. So yeah, this Saturday night it starts out not too far from you there, right? They're down there in Florida.
Yeah, I think it's at Five Flag Speedway in Pensacola. It is actually kind of far from Florida's big, but yeah, it's going to be cool. Right. But yeah, they're going to lots of cool tracks this year, and like you said, the season finale is going to be at Sharon Speedway with the Battle of the Blaneys. Plus, Chase Elliott's going to be entered into that race. Plus, you have likes of Tony Stewart, Ryan Newman, tons of other Bobby Labonte, like tons of other amazing championship winning drivers. And as you said, it's a show. It's like, I think, a 2-hour window. It's a made for TV series. They have fun with it. They throw caution flags to bunch the field back up. They have Paul Tracy out there. They're probably encouraging him to drive a little bit rough for some storylines, but it's fun. The best part about the whole series is they have Alan Bestwick in the booth, who is, Mike Joy is awesome, but Alan Bestwick is probably my all-time favorite motorsports commentator. And I know like I mentioned earlier, the TV package is coming up for renewal here in NASCAR, and if ESPN or somebody jumps back into this deal, I think someone needs to call Alan Bestwick and get him back on NASCAR coverage. Speaking of that as well, NASCAR Cup Series just ended its run with Fox, and the next time when we get back racing in a couple weeks at Nashville, NBC and Dale Earnhardt Jr. and everybody over there takes over the reins for the rest of the year.
Bring back Rutledge.
There you go, Rutledge Wood out in the grandstands.
They do some things with Rutledge are just unbelievably funny. He was riding on a swan over there at Indianapolis Motor Speedway in some lake in the middle of the track, and I'm like, Rutledge. But you know what? He's really good actually at doing the interviews and so forth. So I do look forward to that when they put him out there on the track to do post race interviews. And it's great to have Dale Jr.'s perspective back. As years went by and listening to him more and more, I really, really respect the fact that he respects the history of the sport.
Yep.
That he does, when he does his podcast, he does a good job of listening as well as talking. And, that perspective really comes through on the broadcast. So it's going to be great to have him back this fall.
Yeah. So really looking forward to that. That wraps up most of the podcast, but I guess we do need to get to our recap of the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. So
don't worry about it.
We'll go ahead and we'll jump back here and see where everybody landed here with this race at Sonoma. And we'll start off here with my starting lineup, which, when I go through this again, I thought really solid starting lineup here. But I think some things worked against me. Part of it was the strategies, and part of it was Kyle Busch spinning out of the top 5 or top 10 there at the end. But my starting lineup, Chase Elliott, things were looking great until the pit road issue. Daniel Suarez, the victor, I had him in the starting lineup. That was great. Ross Chastain, up and down day for Chastain, ends up with I think a top 10 or close to that there. Kurt Busch, really fast in practice, didn't really show that much speed in the qualifying though. Highest finishing Toyota on the day in 18th place, which I think is a new low for them. It's been like a decade or something since they haven't had a car finish in the top 17 or something. So had Kurt Busch in the lineup, and then Kyle Busch also, like I said, it was a really good day. It seemed like it was going to be a really good day for Kyle, but between the strategies and that spin out at the end, man, just did not get me enough points. And I had Ryan in the garage. I probably could have taken him out, but I said to you, I think I was a little bit distracted by what was going on, kind of watching my wife watch her favorite driver win a race, that I forgot in that last stage to swap Ryan in for somebody like Kurt. I did not do great in the featured matchups. I picked Kyle Busch over Logano. That was wrong. I picked Chastain over Hamlin. That was the only one I got correct. I picked Allmendinger over Cindric. Wrong. And I picked Bell over Briscoe. Also wrong. So not my best showing after a few strong weeks for me. What did the Team Mez starting lineup look like?
I went 0 for 4 in the features before we even get started. So dive bomb those. But I did have Daniel.
There you go.
I went road course guy. I put Larson in the lineup, figuring he starts from the pole. Once again, their strategy didn't work this year. Like I said, that last year, yeah, drive right through the field, didn't matter. This year, no, you get caught in traffic, you get behind guys. It's
No
a lot
bueno.
harder in this car, right? So Chase Elliott, Ross Chastain, I had some guys who ended up finishing pretty good. And then I had Tyler Reddick and Denny Hamlin in the garage. So by the time I knew Reddick was out, even if I was swapped Hamlin in, it would only been a couple point difference. So yeah, not a great points day. Once again, like you said, the thing about the strategy of this race, as far as trying to win the race, you're not racing the stages for stage points. And NASCAR, this was brought up on a couple different podcasts in the last day or two that I've listened to, really ought to revisit how they do this for the road courses, because a lot of them are doing it this way now. The strategy is the same, almost the same for about 30 out of 40 teams. And that is, if we want to win the race and we think we can win the race, we're going to pit before the stage break, before the caution. So
it pretty much makes it to where the last stage is the only wild card stage. It just depends on when you pit, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And it totally, like I said, it destroys stage points into fantasy like this, because you can't, you pick guys who you think are going to give you the stage points, and they're pitting with two before stage break. Somebody had a great idea, and it was just run it green. And when they get to lap 25 or whatever it is, wherever they are on lap 25, they get those points, and just run it green. And then whenever anybody wants to pit, they pit. Then they'll go back to the old strategy that they used to use, where they race the race backwards, where they know the pit window is 40 laps and they want to get within the window, and then within the window and only have 2 pit stops, or maybe you do 3 based on a tire fall off, if you feel like you can make up the time on the track, all those things are out the window with the stage breaks, because they're planned cautions that they know are coming. So yeah, just something that they could adjust in the future, but it really screws with your fantasy lineup for sure.
So we didn't have that great of a points day at Sonoma, but let's talk about some people that did. Let's go to the results in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. When it comes to points earned at Sonoma Raceway, in the first position, Frygal 12, 209 points. In second, Supermod, 199 points earned. Third, Blaney or Bust. That's a new one, 195. Fourth, Rochi 12, 190. Fifth, P-Shoot Bill, 186. Sixth, Rogue Tough, 182. Seventh, Jess 750, I think another new name, 177. Seventh, David Lazaro, 177, tied for seventh. Tied for ninth, we have Bud King in Team Penske with 175, and also B-Rye 12, 175, tied for the ninth position. Let's take a look now at the overall league standings. Holding down the top spot, and this isn't surprising, we have Clyde's Chicken Pit Racing, the defending champion of the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, 3,036 points. In second, Math Mom 4, who has risen to the challenge this year, 3,004 points. In third, just behind, Frygal 12, 3,002 points. In fourth, the Dalai Lama 4, 2,997 points. In the fifth position, Eric D 15, 2,962 points. In sixth, Blaney Kicks, 2,950 points. Seventh, Moose Hunter 1960, 2,940 points. Eighth, Bulldog 0277, 2,938 points. Ninth, Supermod, 2,930 points. And rounding out the top 10 this week in the overall standings for the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, we have 2 Bushes, no Johnsons, 2,929 points. But the biggest mover of the week, not really, but the biggest move of the week in the standings, which was pointed out to me from some of the folks in our Discord server. I don't think moved up in the standings. It was more you fell, but I have supplanted you in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League standings. In the 23rd position, Team Blaney host Adam, that's me, 2,775 points, and you have fallen to the 25th position, 2,762 points. So that's an exciting development. So
you're still only second in your household.
That's okay. But on this 14th of June, 2022, Adam has beaten Steve. And I think the season ends here. I think we'll just cut it off here. That's all we need to do.
Yeah. Then you get an extra week off to actually celebrate.
Yeah. So Yeah, so we'll see. Again, this is a fun thing that we do keep track of. We got about 100 folks participating in this every week, which is the cap, and it's really great to have everybody having some fun with that. We talk a little trash in the Discord server, talk some picks here and there, and I do find it funny that we have people that are listeners to the show that like to point out how close we are in the standings and celebrate me and my wonderful stretch that I've had the last 5 or so races that has brought us closer together and brought me ahead of you. So that's all I know.
That, and like I said, you're second in your household. So
I know you got to keep, she got her win this week.
Yeah.
She's beating me in fantasy. Now it's time for me to shine, right?
It's good. That's right. It's your turn, right? It's good to be the king.
So that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of the podcast. But I did want to toss one thing to you. Because if you are listening to the podcast version of this just through your headphones, you missed out on some amazing technical visuals that Steve gave earlier when he talked about the incident between Ryan Blaney and Denny Hamlin. So if you are worried, if you have FOMO right now from missing out on that action and that scientific explanation of what happened in that racing incident, go back and watch our new YouTube channel.
Yeah, that's right. Team Blaney on YouTube. It's the place to catch the video version of this. And like I said, in the future, when you point at that, when you point, we're going to be on the other side of the screen, right?
I don't know. It's different for everybody.
Yes, my wife is like, she's like, you're on the wrong side because of the way the graphic is. We got to be on the other side. So hopefully that gets fixed each week. Because
Oh, it was right last week. Don't worry.
Yeah, it was. There are people with ADD. You got to be careful. It could mess them up for the whole day. But yeah, you go to YouTube, subscribe if you can. That way we know that you're getting it, and you'll get your notification that it's coming out. But about the same time that Adam posts this on all the podcast areas, it'll pop up on YouTube too when he gets a chance. And we'll try to be a little more visual. We got really cool backgrounds as you can tell. It's going to be a really kind of a cool thing, especially when you get a guest or two in here, because you'll actually get to see some expressions and some people, hopefully. And we're working on that too. But check out YouTube. It's been really cool so far. We're catching, starting off with a certain number, and it's already growing week to week. And since it's already recording in that manner, it's really kind of a cool thing for us to do, to give you a little bit more of a visual. You can see what we actually look like in person. Subscribe either place. Subscribe to your podcast if you do a podcast. But if you don't do podcasts, or people who don't do podcasts, let them know it's on YouTube now. I let a fellow that I work with, one of the places I deliver to, but know about it, and right away he wrote it down. He's like, podcast, YouTube. I can do YouTube, and he watched it and enjoyed it. So hopefully we'll keep doing that for you in the future too. It was kind of cool. You put the captions up on last week's, and there was somebody who commented about that, which is really good too. So now, if you don't listen to podcasts because you're a little bit hard of hearing, now you get a visual and you get closed captions on it also, and it makes it reach even more people. So let people know we're doing that, for those who don't know that we're doing that.
So that's right. Check out the YouTube channel. As Steve said, subscribe to us there, subscribe to us on the podcast apps. And you'll be able to join us each week to learn a little bit more about Ryan and some of the inside stuff that we will catch up on throughout the week about the team.
Pay attention to the Team Blaney Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, because in the next day or two we're posting some things. And there's a race going on as we're taping this right now up at Sharon Speedway. So I'm sure some people are paying attention to that. And maybe we'll have some good results from there. Who knows?
I hope so. One other PSA I have before we leave is that I just wanted to point out that the Ryan Blaney Coke Zero Sugar 400 Victory diecast from NASCAR Authentics has hit stores, at least here in Florida it has. So just a PSA, if you're one of those folks like me that hits about all the retail stores, to just try and see if I can score that. I posted about that on social media, just because, that was a special victory, just because first time Steve and I have been able to catch a NASCAR race together, and Ryan Blaney goes out and wins the dang thing. So really cool die cast. It features all the confetti and everything from Victory Lane, has a little picture of Ryan with the Coke Zero Sugar 400 trophy. So it was a really cool night. I'm really glad I was able to find this. They are up on eBay, but I think I posted in Discord that I really like it when I'm able to find these things out in the wild on my own. But they're still relatively affordable on eBay if it's something that you need. And yeah, if you look behind me here on my door here, I pretty much have like dozens and dozens of those NASCAR authentic grind cars back there behind me. So it doesn't match Steve's hoods that he has, but it does kind of have my NASCAR authentic diecast collection. So I want to thank everyone once again for tuning in to this episode of the Team Blaney podcast. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, check out our debut episode from our very first season that dives deep into our Blaney fandom. You can interact with us on Twitter and Facebook at Team Blaney and on Instagram at team.blaney. And as Steve said, check us out at Team Blaney on YouTube. Finally, we want to encourage you to support the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. This organization, championed by Ryan and his family, supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine in their Fund to Fellow program. You can find out more about the foundation online at ryanblaneyfamilyfoundation.org or on all of their active social media channels. So, for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Good night, Dublin.